in terms of insurance, for example, if we could find ways to insure, and to give understanding to the people with whatever mechanism that we could develop, that we have to have some kind of a disaster insurance.
The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake was a wake-up call for Indonesia. Since then, steps have been made to progressively improve the way Indonesia deals with disasters. But the rising number of natural disasters has severely affected the government's ability to respond effectively to such natural calamities. Just when it tries to refocus its energies on rebuilding and rehabilitation efforts in one region following a major disaster, another disaster occurs soon after in another part of the country.
Kalau kita bicara wilayah yang terdampak tsunami, kita belajar dari kejadian tsunami yang ada di Aceh 2004, itu menjadi wake up call kita, memahami bahwa negara kita memang memiliki potensi risiko yang cukup tinggi. Disitulah wake up call kita. Kita harus mulai sadar bahwa kita harus mulai melakukan pencegahan dan mitigasi. Saya rasa catatan-catatan sejarah sudah menunjukkan bahwa kejadian bencana itu berulang.
We should prepare systemically, because disaster is our systemic vulnerability, and that requires, policies, law, regulations, and then for sure political will. No other choice. We live with disaster. We have to deal with disaster. That's why we have to prepare much better.
And especially for many residents like Pak Latif. Despite the constant exposure to the coastal hazards, living in the high-risk region of Indonesia, he'd prefer to rebuild his life here at the same place that had been destroyed by the tsunami. For him, he regards himself as the people of the ocean, and fishing is his life and the main source of his livelihood, and no one can take that away from him.
Enggak takut, karena kan bukan si manusia yang buat ininya yang menjadi takut kita, karena kan sudah terjadi. Pindah pun kita ke manapun, kalau saatnya tersebut itu harus meninggal, di manapun kita masuk kan tetap meninggal juga.
Penduduk kota Banda Aceh ya sebelum tsunami ya tahun 2003 itu sekitar 238.000. Lalu ketika tsunami sekitar 60.000 sekian ya itu meninggal karena tsunami, meninggal atau hilang. Lalu 10 tahun kemudian jumlah populasinya sudah lebih tinggi daripada 2003 ya, tahun 2014 itu sudah 249 ribuan dan sekarang sudah 268 ribuan. Jadi daerah-daerah yang dulu hancur karena tsunami sekarang sudah bisa dibilang sudah lebih padat lagi bahkan dibandingkan sebelumnya. Saya khawatir di masa depan akan terjadi kehancuran yang bisa jadi lebih dahsyat daripada yang tsunami 2004 kalau itu nggak dimitigasi dari sejak awal.
Prayut Chan-o-cha to step down.
We will see sporadic protests flare up from time and time again.
Key developments.
37th ASEAN Summit.
Live events. Analysis and perspectives.
We will really be seeing vaccines soon.
Imports, which were expected to grow slightly, contracted 2.1%.
News that matters. Asia Now, daily. On CNA. Tonight on Japan Hour.
Ricky, what you created.
テインのなんとかっていうのはどういう料理なの？なんだろうこれ。油揚げの厚いやつ。
Japan Hour. Tonight on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation. And SMBC.
Japan is facing its biggest challenges since World War II: aging population, falling birth rate, shrinking labor force. Challenges that my generation has come to grips and find solutions. Innovate, that's what Japanese are known for. Foreigners, once shunned, are now welcome with open arms. Nothing is taboo anymore, and we have the resilience and resources to face the future.
Parts of Russia are offering incentives to get more residents to take COVID-19 vaccines. At least 4 shots against the coronavirus have been developed and approved by the government, but more than 90% of the country have still not received a jab. Find out what's behind the hesitancy on your next Asia First.
This is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Lo Hui Su at this hour. A COVID-19 alert short of a lockdown for Taipei and the surrounding area. It comes amidst a massive spike in local infections. The first repatriation flight from India to Australia lands in the city of Darwin. It's the first passenger flight between the two countries since a travel ban was imposed over COVID-19. China's space boom continues. It becomes the second nation after the United States to land a rover on Mars. Taiwan has raised its COVID-19 alert level for capital Taipei and the adjacent new Taipei city. This is the first time authorities have imposed a level 3 alert, short of a lockdown. It comes as authorities report 180 new local infections. It's a massive spike from the 7-day average of around 7 to 12 cases. The 2-week heightened alert begins today through the 28th of May. All entertainment and religious venues across the island will be shut to stem the spread of the virus. Indoor gatherings will be limited to 5 and outdoor gatherings to 10 people. Wearing of masks is required at all times. Infections have been on the rise in Taiwan since late April. The current cluster of infection centers on the north of the island, but cases have also propped up elsewhere, including the southern port city of Kaohsiung. Major universities in northern Taiwan have said they are shifting to online learning. Students have been told to stay away from campuses. Some museums will shut. The first repatriation flight from India to Australia has landed in the city of Darwin. It's the first passenger flight between the two countries since Australia imposed a travel ban at the end of last month over the coronavirus crisis in India. Those on board will now spend the next 2 weeks at a remote quarantine facility. Some 150 passengers were booked on the flight, but nearly half of them were not allowed to board. They had either tested positive for COVID-19 or were considered close contacts of an infected person. One Australian passenger says he had his flight cancelled 3 times in the past year and was booked on this flight before testing positive for the virus.
I'm not saying that if I'm positive, you take me on the flight. I'm not saying that. But then, there were opportunities in the past. This is the 3rd time my flight got cancelled. This time, first time for me being positive. But all these 11 plus months, I was negative. I was able to return, but I was not able to return because of the Australian government. And if I die, Australian government will be responsible.
Well, regrettably, those people will have to return home, will have to deal with the COVID that they have or continue to isolate to prove that they don't have COVID. And until such time as they test negative, they will not be eligible to fly on one of these facilitated government flights.
The next repatriation flight is scheduled for the 23rd of this month. 6 government chartered flights